Welcome to Brew Builds. I'm Paul. Since I do a lot of DIY construction projects by myself, I thought it would be helpful if I had my own cement mixer. There's some projects coming up where I could use one, so I ended up purchasing this Bilt Hard 4.5 cubic foot cement mixer. And now, I need to put it together. There are a bunch of cheap drum-style cement mixers out there that you can purchase online or at a box store. They come in three basic styles. There is the traditional tilting unit, where a gear turns the drum, a direct drive unit, where the motor is connected directly to the bottom of the drum, and a low-profile direct drive unit, where you tilt the entire unit to get the cement out. I went with the traditional style because I wanted the ability to be able to pour the mix into a bucket or a wheelbarrow. And the direct drive tilting units are a bit more expensive and they look a bit unstable to me. During my research, I started noticing that a lot of these cement mixers look identical. I imagine there's probably one or two places that actually make the parts and the different manufacturers just paint them a different color and put their name on it. I did notice that this Bilt Hard unit did have a different motor cover, and they do claim to have a higher wattage motor. Another thing I found that they had in common were there were a lot of complaints about lack of directions and how difficult they are to assemble. I guess I'm about to find out. Ooh, shiny new power tool. I guess I should start with the instructions and make sure that I have every piece. All the hardware came in this box. There's the bearing block and separate bags labeled with a letter for its corresponding step, which is nice. Step A. This will use the hardware that is in bag A to attach the two wheels to the axle. Insert a cotter pin into the inner holes of the stub axle and bend the pin so it doesn't fall out. Place a flat washer, then a wheel, followed by another flat washer. Insert another cotter pin into the outer axle hole and bend the pin. Repeat for the other side. Step B. With the frame lying on its side, attach the support leg as shown. I'll grab the bag with the letter B. Oh, well that looks bent. That's a bummer. Probably damaged during shipping. Strike one. And they don't fit together. This metal is pretty thin. I should be able to straighten it enough to get it bolted together. I'll use this 12-inch C-clamp to bend the corner back into shape. This square steel tubing is very thin-walled, maybe 16 gauge. That should work. Bolt the support leg to the frame by inserting the two hex bolts through the holes from one side. Add the flat washer, lock washers, and nuts. Step C. Turn the frame over and attach the axle bracket with the wheels in the same manner. Step D. Attaching the bottom drum. Slide the bearing block onto the drum shaft first. The directions say to hold it in place with the snap ring. I waited until I had the lower drum in place before doing this. Lift the lower drum and arm, this may take two people, and insert the two bearing blocks into the frame. The larger diameter shaft should be at the leg end of the stand. It made more sense to me to wait until I had the drum mounted to add the O-ring and snap ring to the drum shaft. Put the O-ring on first. This will help seal the motor against the flange. Then put on the snap ring. If you don't have snap ring pliers, a regular pair of needle nose pliers can work by spreading the ring apart or by using two flat blade screwdrivers. At each side, line up the holes in the side support with those in the bearing block and insert a hex bolt from one side. Then add a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut from the other side, tightening everything with a wrench. Alright, step E, mounting the mixing blades. Place the mixing blades inside the drum. The longer pointier side goes against the bottom drum. There are two holes at the base of the drum to which a bolt from bag E may be inserted from the outside. The leather washer, flat washer, lock washer, and nut should be threaded on loosely from the inside of the drum. The leather washer is placed in between the blade and the drum. Step F. Attaching the upper drum. Position the upper drum on the bottom drum over the rim, making sure the mounting holes align as well as the labeled arrows. The holes in the bottom drum ring gear are threaded. Put a bolt in each hole before tightening them, and tighten the bolts progressively. Secure the mixing blades to the upper drum by inserting two cross-headed screws from the outside through the holes in the drum. A leather washer should be positioned in between the drum and the blade, securing the mixing blade on the inside using a flat washer, lock washer, and nut. Check that all the nuts and bolts are tight. Step G. The locking plate. Slide the locking plate over the large diameter shaft with the rim facing inwards. Insert two bolts, tighten with a flat washer, lock washer, and a nut. Step H. Attaching the arm. There is a spring that should be inside the shaft of the arm, so be careful not to lose this. Slide the arm over the large diameter drum shaft until the holes in the bracket line up with the holes drilled. Insert a hex bolt and add a nut and a flat washer and a lock washer from the other side. Screw the nut up against the bracket firmly, but not so tight to prevent the arm from pivoting around the bolt so that the lugs on the bracket can be engaged or disengaged from the slots in the locking plate. Step I. Attaching the motor. Line up the keyways with the motor and the pinion shaft. Then slide the motor case over the pinion shaft. It was a tight fit, but it did manage to get it all the way on. There are 4 nuts with washers that hold the motor on, but I wasn't able to use my socket wrench, so I had to use a crescent wrench to get them tight. Well, that's it. It turns on and it does rotate. Assembly wasn't that difficult. It did take a while, and figuring out which way the blades went probably was the most challenging thing, but lining up the arrows definitely helped on that one. Hit the like button for me and subscribe to Brew Builds to see which projects I end up using this on. I would like to mix up a batch right now, but I want to keep this drum clean because the first thing I will use it on is the concrete countertops for the barbecue and fireplace. That project is taking way too long between the weather and me working, so hopefully this will help speed things up. The concrete countertops were the first project that I used the mixer on. I couldn't imagine doing this project by myself without having a mixer. Transferring the mix into a bucket worked well, as long as I went slow to avoid any cement mix from missing the bucket and ending up on the ground. The directions say to keep it turning while emptying the drum. I don't see how that could work without making a big mess. A couple of times I did mix 2 bags of the countertop cement mix together at one time, which weighed about 160 pounds. It did a good job mixing, but with that much weight, the thin wall steel base and the tilting handle appeared to be at their max. I can't imagine putting in the rated 240 pounds max of mix in this thing. It was very convenient when I was able to pour the mix directly into the lower countertop form. Definitely saved me some time, but I was concerned that the handle might snap off. This mixer did a great job on this project, and I'm very happy that I purchased one. The next project I used it on was mixing mortar mix to repair a brick wall that had been damaged by a tree. Since I can be a bit slow when it comes to this type of work, I mixed up a half a bag at a time, which worked well because I was able to get that amount of mortar mix applied before it would start to harden. To keep the mortar mix from drying in the mixer drum, I would add some water for the next batch and turn it on for a few minutes to remove any of the excess mix from behind the blaze. When I was about halfway done with one batch, I would add the spec mix into the drum and then start the next batch mixing. I was able to keep the drum and mixer pretty clean by hosing it off before any of the mix would dry completely. I did miss some spots on the backside of the blades when the mix dried, and it stuck to the paint and I had to chip the mortar off. It was definitely beneficial to have the mixer to complete a project like this wall. The third project I used it on was for the fireplace stucco. I mixed a full bag of the stucco base coat at a time, which worked very well. I'm so glad I had a mixer compared to mixing it by hand or using a drill, because I'm able to do prep work or other things while it is mixing. When I applied the color top coat, I divided the stucco bag in half for mixing. It mixed fine, but the problem for me was how much time it took me to apply the stucco to the fireplace. So even though I mixed just half of a bag, the leftover stucco started to dry in the drum before I was ready to mix another batch. I had to clean out the drum when I should have been floating and finishing the stucco. Not really a mixer performance issue, more of a DIY, I don't do this very often type of issue. So for the next bag, I ended up dividing it into thirds and mixing it in a bucket. Definitely not a time saver, but it was less stressful and I was able to complete the project. The cost of purchasing this compared to renting one for me is equivalent to renting a mixer for 7 individual days. I'm probably already past that with the 3 projects that I use this on. It gave me the ability to work on a project when I had some time. I didn't have to go pick it up or get it returned in time before the store closed. However, it does need to be stored and it's not that attractive looking at this outside your kitchen window. It was pretty easy to assemble, so I'll probably take it apart some so I can store it inside the garage because I don't think it can handle being out in the weather very well. There's a few more projects that I can use this on in the next year or so. After that, I'll probably just sell it for cheap. I hope this video has been helpful for you if you're considering purchasing a cement mixer. You can check out my concrete countertop video here, or you might want to watch this playlist. Hit that like button for me and be sure to subscribe to Bilt so you don't miss any DIY home videos like this one.